Welcome to Fantasy Football Today, Dynasty. I am your host, Heath Cummings, joined today by our good friend Adam Pfeiffer. And Adam, I did not mean to bring you on so shortly after your pain. It seems like this happens every year.
Yeah, you have nothing to apologize because you would just not ever be allowed to ask me on the podcast in mid to late January. So, it's been an eventful 48 hours for Bills fans. But I'm as always happy to be here, and you know, I'm not so depressed that I'm not willing to talk some football. So.
We are doing a Superflex startup mock draft. No rookies today. As I told you last week, we will talk almost exclusively rookies on Friday with the Couch Scouts. They'll be here to talk about the guys they've already evaluated. We're going to go through the rookies that we expect to be first-round picks in the NFL draft and talk about where we're going to take them in rookie drafts. It is that season, but I like to do a startup mock draft right about now each year, just to kind of get a feel for how things have changed since the start of the year. And you took Josh Allen first overall. That hasn't really changed. Adam Azer, I think probably auto-picked, but took Jamar Chase number 2 overall. That really hasn't changed. He's still wide receiver 1. Dave Richard, though, takes Drake May with the 3rd pick. Second QB taken. That has changed a lot. In fact, last year at this point, it might have been another young quarterback, another second-year quarterback, Jaden Daniels, that we were taking in this spot.
Come on.
Do you think what May did in his second season, Adam, justifies him going ahead of Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow and any other quarterback you might think of besides Josh Allen?
Yeah, honestly, if Josh Allen wasn't so insanely good, I think you could make I've seen people that have done startups and rankings that have Drake May 1. I think if I was doing dynasty rankings, Drake May would be second. So I don't think it's crazy at all. I expected a really good year from him. I didn't expect this, and they can probably add more weapons after this season. So, by the way, your sound I believe is on. I don't know if you want that on for the sleeper app.
I certainly
probably helps you.
Do not intend to have the sound on. So I've got my computer muted. So I don't know why we're getting that, but I generally, we're working through a couple things here. Thank you for letting me know that. So the first 6 picks, Josh Allen, Jamar Chase, Drake May, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba goes 1 spot before Puka Nacua. It's pretty much, I think, to this point, not that surprising. There goes Jaden Daniels at 8th. He has certainly fallen since where he was last year. He was in contention for QB1 in Dynasty when we talked at this point last year. Do you think this is where Daniels kind of belongs now? Do you expect a bounce back in year 3?
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of just chalk this up as a lost season, multiple injuries. Came back when he probably shouldn't, re-injured. It was just a brutal season. Now, obviously, the only thing you can really pinpoint going into next season is Cliff Kingsbury. His offense is very fantasy friendly, and that's gone now. I mean, they were first in no huddle rate, pretty much first in pace the last 2 seasons with Kingsbury as the OC. But yeah, I mean, that's probably going to be the only thing. You'd like to add some youth at wide receiver as well. Those are the only 2 things that are really a concern of mine at all for Jaden Daniels. And wow, that's probably the earliest we'll see Patrick Mahomes go.
Our good friend JB Cho taking Patrick Mahomes at 111. I'm going to take a pair of quarterbacks. I always give myself the 1st or the 12th pick just because, I need to be on the corners during these drafts. And I think I'm going to go QB, Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about what we saw from him in the playoffs because listen, obviously the fadeaway touchdown pass is kind of like the most brilliant part of the Caleb Williams experience. He does those Mahomes-esque things, Josh Allen-esque things, where he just snatches victory from the jaws of defeat. But also, and I was just reading about this earlier today, the inaccurate throws are kind of the one thing that did not improve in this season. As good as everything was, we saw it again in the playoffs. still way too many throws off target. Do you still believe Caleb Williams, because of the high upside plays he makes, has a chance to be somebody maybe we're taking in the first 6 picks and not at the 1-2 turn? Or are we afraid that Caleb's kind of stuck with where he is?
No, I think just putting his tape on, it's like there's players, there's maybe 3 other players in the league that can make some of the throws he is making, and he's still a young player. I just think sometimes it's weird. Like some throws, like you mentioned, the fadeaway 4th down throw, like the touch he had to be able to make that throw in that situation. But then there's other throws where it's like a 10-yard in route and he just throws it 100 miles per hour over somebody's head. So just some consistencies, like you mentioned, and he'll be fine. And yeah, like what their offense looked best. I'm sure we'll talk about some of his skill position players later, but their offense looked best after Luther Burden and Colson Leveland finally got acclimated after being banged up to start the offseason. So we'll see what they do. Maybe DJ Moore's a trade candidate, but Ben Johnson at the helm. It's just, I feel like the sky's the limit for Caleb Williams.
So round 1 goes Josh Allen, Jamar Chase, Drake May, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, JSN, Puka Nacua, Jaden Daniels, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts. So we get 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and then the 7 quarterbacks I think that you would expect. I took Caleb Williams to start round 8. I always kind of feel like round 2, I kind of always feel like after you get past Caleb, or maybe some people have Mahomes that are there behind Caleb and Jalen Hurts, but after you get past those guys, there should be a little bit of a break in terms of the quarterback run. I don't think that there's anybody necessarily knocking on that door. Some people might think Jackson Dart is. Brock Purdy for a portion of this year, people were talking about like that. I see that you've made your 2 picks at the 2-3 turn. So it looks like we went about 8 players that were non-QBs before we started seeing some QBs as well. Do you agree with the tier break there after Mahomes, Hurts, and Caleb?
I think so. I mean, Mahomes is obviously the interesting talking point now because he claims he's going to be back for week 1. And a lot of these startups, like I'm seeing him in like the mid-3rd round in Superflex, which is just kind of crazy. But there's obvious other questions there too, right? Obviously, bringing back Bieniemy is probably going to be a positive for them, but what's going on with the wide receiver room? Travis Kelce, does he retire? Stuff like that. But and yeah, there goes Jackson Dart. So I want to get your take on Trevor Lawrence, because this time last year that would have been an insane pick.
Yeah, but 2 or 3 years ago it would have looked normal.
Right. And I debated between him, one of the running backs that I debated between with Taylor and Hampton, and then Jackson Dart. But man, like Trevor Lawrence, it's not just the fact that he had that stretch of 8 games with just being the best quarterback in fantasy, but I don't want to say it's sustainable to have what he did, because it's not. But it's probably going to be sustainable for him to be a top 12 quarterback because of how much he ran. They call design runs. And oh, by the way, the trade of Jacoby Myers just solidified this wide receiver room, plus Parker Washington's breakout. Like, their receiver room is all of a sudden so good that they might trade Brian Thomas Jr. and be okay. So, yeah, usually when I have like a team where I draft Josh Allen in a Superflex, I kind of lean more towards like a hero quarterback where I just take a veteran later. But I kind of like what I'm seeing from Lawrence with Liam Cohen. So I decided to try 2 early quarterbacks for once with the first pick.
I'm about to be on the clock at the end of round 3. Let's run through round 2, though, for those of you who are not watching. Caleb Williams, Justin Jefferson, Malik Neighbors, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, Saquon Barkley, Drake London, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence rounds out round 2. What's your biggest observation, maybe from that middle run there of the non-QBs, Jefferson, Neighbors, Lamb, St. Brown, Genty, Bowers, McBride, Barkley, and London?
I would say probably Barkley over Taylor and Hampton is a little interesting. I had a tough decision between Taylor and Hampton. I just leaned Taylor just because I don't. What's going to happen with Greg Roman gone? Maybe they just go crazy pass heavy. I don't know. Maybe that's good for Hampton. But that's probably the one thing that stood out was Barkley over those 2 guys, I would say. Other than that, though, not a ton. Like, you're obviously going to have the 2 elite tight ends there, which makes sense.
I thought maybe the elite tight ends went a little bit late. I also thought that Jefferson, Neighbors, Lamb, St. Brown group may have gone in the exact opposite order that I would draft those guys. And Jefferson's one of the most interesting guys because I think most of us still think he is an elite wide receiver. The situation was awful this year, though.
Yeah, I mean, that situation to me was 1,000% quarterback based. Like Jefferson was getting open all the time, out routes, everything, just the ball sailing over his head. And they're pretty non-committal with how they're talking in the offseason about J.J. McCarthy being their starter next season. We've seen reports that they want to bring in veterans. Maybe it's a trade for a Mac Jones or a veteran free agent. But somebody that's a veteran in the NFL, I mean, my goodness. Every time I think of Justin Jefferson, I just think of what he could have done if Jacoby Brissett was his quarterback. And I get sad. But but that's an interesting tier too, because Jefferson is clearly, in my opinion, the best player of that group. And if he gets stable quarterback play, he'll be the best. But we saw what Jackson Dart did. The only thing is we didn't really get to see Malik with him, really. First game I think Dart started was his injury, right? The Chargers game?
That seems accurate, yeah. Yeah, no, I think that there's certainly uncertainty there. Round 3, you started off with Jonathan Taylor, then Amari and Hampton, then Devon Achane. Then we had Nico Collins, Ladd McConkey, Jackson Dart, Tedero McMillan, Rashee Rice, Brock Purdy, Travion Henderson, Breece Hall, and then I took Marvin Harrison Jr. Yes, I still have him as a top 12 wide receiver. Yes, I still believe the upside's insane. I'd feel better about that pick, and that's a good thing to bring up right now. Like, we are in the period of time where there's so much uncertainty about who's going to be coaching where, who's going to be playing quarterback where. I was looking at it today. I think maybe a third of the league might have a different quarterback in 2026, which is insane because there aren't that many good options to go fill those vacancies. Let's take our first break. When we come back, we'll break down round 3 and round 4 of our Superflex startup mock draft.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
We are back. Adam has made his end of round 4 pick. He's getting ready to pick in round 5. Took Chase Brown at the end of round 4. And I think your team is going to lead me into a question that I was kind of interested to see in this mock, how exactly it went down. Because this was definitely a year where we got a lot better performances, a lot more satisfying performances from the top running backs than the top wide receivers. And kind of the second year in a row where the wide receivers no longer look safer in terms of injury in comparison to the running backs. A lot of wide receivers missing time. You start your team with 2 quarterbacks and 2 running backs. I think looking at the last 5 to 10 years of Dynasty coverage, a lot of people would not want to have 2 running backs before they take a pass catcher. But is the league changing in a way to where that type of strategy in Dynasty is also going to need to change?
Yeah, I think it's possible. And granted, I'll admit, like, I'm trying different things out when I do these startup mock drafts. So I did want to try to see, especially when there was kind of a tier break for me. Like, I really wanted Olave. So I decided to use it as an opportunity to see what happens if I go 2 early running backs. And yeah, I mean, Chase Brown, and in every game Joe Burrow's played the last 2 years, he's just been insane. So we'll see how it works. But yeah, it's obviously always a risk and a talking point with running backs in Dynasty for sure. By the way, condolences for your loss of Harold Fannin in this draft.
Yeah, the 3-4 turn seemed a little bit too early for me to take Harold Fannin, although I did
the 112 a little too early.
I did consider it. Looking at round 4, so I started that off with Kyren Williams, and everybody always hates it when I draft Kyren Williams. It's always too earlier than anybody wants to take him, but I would assume he'll just give us another top 12 running back season next year. Garrett Wilson went second, then Jordan Love, then Colston Loveland, Christian McCaffrey, James Cook, George Pickens, Brian Thomas Jr., Bucky Irving, Chris Olave, Bo Nix, and Chase Brown. So I guess the first thing that stands out, you brought up Fannin. He went in round 5. Loveland going pretty much a full round before any of the other tight ends after McBride and Bowers. He did some things, I think, to justify those of us who had Loveland as the tight end 1 in this class at the beginning of the year, and I did. But is he a round ahead of those other tight ends?
I think the Bears are maybe the most interesting team in Dynasty because if DJ Moore's traded, right, which would make sense for their team, especially financially, everything like that, schematically. With Ben Johnson as the coach and play caller, couldn't we just see this being Rome Odunze's Jameson Williams, Luther Burden maybe could be Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Colson Level and Sam Laporta? Like that, I'm not saying Luther Burden's going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown, but in terms of like the usage and how they're used, that's exciting to me. But yeah, like he should probably be a little bit closer to at least Fannin for me. Laporta, I have no clue what to expect either because they have a new OC and he's missed so much time. And are they going to marry some of the things they did when Dan Campbell took over with Jameson Williams, or was that solely because they didn't have Sam Laporta? And what worries me is Drew Petzing's now their OC again, and who was running vertical go routes on the sideline at all times with Drew Petzing? Marvin Harrison. So I'm slightly worried about that, but Laporta's interesting too.
I actually thought for the purposes of Laporta, like if we're going to let the offensive coordinator choice impact anything, it should be a boost to him.
Right.
Because that's from that Stefanski tree, and it's a tight end centric offense, and they've got one of the best tight ends. Now, I do think, if I could toot my own horn a little bit, that I feel a lot better about Tyler Warren as the last pick in round 5.
Yeah, that feels like a little bit of just he had the worst possible run out in the second half with Daniel Jones being banged up, and they just couldn't move on offense. And then Fannin and Loveland both took off. So people just, forget about Tyler Warren now. So that presents a value opportunity for sure.
So I told you the last pick of round 5, you started round 5 with T. Higgins, then Emeka Egbuka, then Harold Fannin and Sam Laporta. We talked about those picks. Then A.J. Brown, some interesting wide receivers in this round. Dak Prescott in the middle of round 5. Ken Walker, Cam Scatterbu, C.J. Stroud, Rome Odunze, Josh Jacobs, and Tyler Warren. I feel like with Egbuka, Brown, and Odunze in particular, we're probably seeing them at this point in the year at kind of a low point in terms of their actual value. Higgins had the strong finish to the season. Everybody knows what it is with him. If he plays 16 games, he's going to be awesome, as long as Joe Burrow does also. And that's just not happened quite as often as we would have liked for it to happen. But who do you have more optimism about in terms of Rome Odunze, A.J. Brown, and Emeka Egbuka?
That's tough because it's going to be tough if they can trade him, but who knows where A.J. Brown's playing next season. Odunze, I still have hope from that start of the season, but then again, because you have to remember, 2 rookies in Burden and Loveland missed significant time in training camp. And they start off slow and miss time. And that's when Rome Odunze is the best player on the team and one of the 10 best receivers in fantasy.
I'm going to cut you off because you are back on the clock for your round 6 and round 7 picks. And I always appreciate you coming on and doing these mock drafts with me because I know the difficulty of doing a podcast and a mock draft at the same time. You always do a fantastic job, but I didn't want you to have to auto pick. I auto picked earlier, but thankfully I had Marvin Harrison in the queue. So no problems there. Looking at my team through 6 rounds. Can't say that I'm unhappy with how it started at all. Quarterbacks are Jalen Hurts and Caleb Williams. The only running back on the team right now is Kyron Williams. I think you're getting at least 2 more top 15 seasons from him at running back. Marvin Harrison Jr. and Zay Flowers are the current wide receivers on this team with Tyler Warren at tight end. Harrison and Flowers, for me, Adam, are both guys that I still think there's so much more available to them than what we have gotten so far. Flowers is elite on a per route basis and sometimes on a per target basis, but we know the situation, what it has been there in Baltimore. They've got a coaching change. Do you think it's possible that we get a slightly more pass-friendly offense for Zay Flowers in 2026?
Yeah, it would be nice. My problem really hasn't even been the passing volume because he gets like 27 to 30% of the targets anyway. It's just he was a wide receiver 7 finish strictly off a couple late games where he finally scored touchdowns.
Yeah.
And he only had 5, I believe, on the whole year. So that's really been the only problem with Zay Flowers. He's always been towards the top 12 among receivers in efficiency metrics. All the numbers you want to see from a receiver, it's just he seems to have a floor usually of like 5 for 65, and a lot of times those are ceiling games as well. That's really been the only thing holding him back. He's been really productive. It's just he won't really ever barring a spike in touchdowns out of nowhere, have a season where he's close to those guys where he could score 10, 11, 12 touchdowns.
Looking at round 6, I took Zay Flowers, then Baker Mayfield, Cam Ward, Luther Burden, RJ Harvey, Jared Goff, Quinshon Judkins, Travis Hunter, Devontae Smith, Jamison Williams, Jalen Waddle, and DK Metcalf. We had a comment in the chat earlier, I think it was the round before this, that said I really thought Judkins would be gone by now.
I debated him in Chase Brown.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty excited about him as a rusher.
Yeah.
I think what we have to find out is first off, what type of system is he going to end up in? Second off, what is the Browns offensive line going to look like? Third, who is their quarterback going to be? The situation has lots of questions. Do you have any reservations about Judkins in 2026 based on the injury, or are you expecting that we're going to get him fully healthy for week 1?
No, I believe it was like, for his injury, best case scenario for him to be back and ready to go. So I think he should be fine for week 1. And I liked him as a prospect. I thought as soon as he got the start, was it week 2 because he was out the first week, he looked like, honestly, immediately one of the better between the tackles guys in the league. It's just you're stacking the box when you have these, very below average quarterbacks around him, and the offensive line was not good. I'm encouraged by Judkins. The only thing you have to see is, will he be used in the passing game more? He wasn't at all, other than maybe some games where Dylan Sampson was out. That's something that remains to be seen, but I do believe that middle 6th round is pretty late for Judkins, 22, I believe, years old, and he's probably going to be in the mold of, like, not in terms of production, but like Derrick Henry usage, where you hope Cleveland's winning games, which is probably the concern, I guess, and hope he gets 20 to 22 carries and a couple catches.
So we had a little quarterback run here in round 7, and I think everybody kind of got to the point where they realized, if I don't take a quarterback pretty quick, I'm not going to have a number 3 quarterback. And that is a hugely important thing, particularly in Dynasty. So I took Sam Darnold at the end of round 7, right after Kyler Murray was taken, which was right after Bryce Young was taken. Stafford and Penix went earlier in round 7. You took 2 at the start of this draft with Josh Allen and Trevor Lawrence. That's obviously an elite duo. Like, even if we have questions about whether Trevor Lawrence should go that early, even if we have questions about whether he can repeat what he did at the end of this year, getting him as your QB2 feels fantastic.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. So I usually would wait with Josh Allen, but we'll see.
Does having an elite number 1, and I would say an elite number 2, make you more okay with maybe not having a QB3 walking out of this draft?
No, I would still try to get a quarterback 3, just because I'm trying to, even though it's a mock draft and I know that, I'm trying to draft it as if it's not. So I want to make sure, bye weeks, et cetera, you have a 3rd quarterback to put in there. And that's the interesting player I was going to see, Tyler Shuck. That's who I was waiting to see where he went.
I think it's interesting that McCarthy went before Shuck.
Yeah,
Shuck
I would have drafted Tyler Shuck immediately over J.J. McCarthy.
Shuck was better this year.
There's probably like a 99% chance Tyler Shuck starting next season, and like a 60% chance McCarthy starting.
Man, the thing that I struggle with in terms of that, because I know what you're saying in terms of they haven't really committed to him.
Right.
But there's so many more teams that need quarterbacks than there are quarterbacks. And I just don't know that Minnesota is going to be in a position. I don't think you're going to get any of them cheap. Like, maybe they find one off the scrap heap they want to start, but I'm afraid Jacoby Brissett's going to cost some significant cash to somebody. People are worried that Kyler isn't going to get a chance to start anywhere. There's not enough quarterbacks to keep Kyler Murray from getting another chance to start. Like, I think, and to that point, I think it's worthwhile to kind of look around some of the dynasty rosters in your league and look at those guys who are uncertain as starters next year. I think most of them will be, because there are too many openings, and they might be cheaper right now. It'd have to be cheaper right now. You're not going to pay a 1st round pick for a quarterback you don't know is starting, but that value could really increase in a big way and in a hurry. Let's take a look at round 7. You took Ricky Pearsall. I know the chat loved that one. Bashal Tootin with the 2nd pick of round 7. Then Matthew Stafford and Penix. I talked about those quarterbacks in that round. Terry McLaurin, Jordan Addison, Devontae Adams, Tucker Kraft, Travis Etienne, Bryce Young, Kyler Murray, Sam Darnold. So I think good value there on Kraft in round 7, 2 rounds after I took Tyler Warren, which I felt like was a good value then. We saw Jordan Addison here go in round 7. Rashee Rice went in round 3. Both of these guys, again, interactions with law enforcement in the offseason. Not something we want to see. I see that you're on the clock here, so I'll let you make your picks. And I think we kind of need to talk a little bit about how we're letting that impact our evaluation of these guys in Dynasty. It sounds like this particular incident was more significant for Rice than it was for Addison. But again, it's their judgment showing up in the offseason. And it doesn't feel good if they're on your Dynasty roster, obviously. I just wonder, is Rashee Rice still definitely a top 12 Dynasty wide receiver for you? Is Jordan Addison still definitely a top 20 Dynasty wide receiver for you?
I mean, if I were doing rankings right now, I think they would have to be just until we learn more, as I risk getting, oh boy.
Yeah, there you go. Now we get, so just for those who had the betting line,
and they give me Kittle. Yikes!
For those of you who had the betting line, it was the first pick of round 9 when Adam crashed out, and I did ask him a question while I was on the clock. I really tried to filibuster for a while there for you. I thought that the pick would get in.
Yeah, I was.
That's perfectly fine. I saw somebody saying the other day that George Kittle is going to be just fine for next year. So.
Well, the problem is Kyle Pitts isn't on the Chiefs yet. Or I would have loved to take him.
Well, with Stefanski going to Atlanta, I don't know if I would go anywhere at all if I was Kyle Pitts.
I'm good either way. Yeah, like I guess for right now, you just wait and see, and you keep Rashee Rice in the top 12 and Jordan Addison in the top 30. But I'd be lying if I said I had any clue what to expect. So that's an interesting pick by Dave. He could be one of the highest risers in all of Dynasty by middle of March.
And that's Alec Pierce that Dave took in with the 3rd pick of round 9. Going to be a very interesting offseason for him as well. I saw some speculation that the Colts might actually be done with Michael Pittman so that they can keep Alec Pierce. I'm not sure if that's the most desirable situation for Alec Pierce because, again, yet another team – I'm not sure who their quarterback is going to be in the 2026 season. Probably Daniel Jones at some point, but I don't know that he'll be ready for week 1 either. Let's go ahead and take our second break. Before we do that, Aaron asked in the chat, how do I get in some of these mocks in the future? We're going to do a lot of these through the offseason. As a rule, I generally put them out on Twitter about an hour before we draft. I try to find about 6 experts, and then I send something out on Twitter, and whoever happens to see it first. But I know I saw somebody in the chat say that they tried to get in this morning and they were 4 minutes after the tweet was sent and it was already full. So maybe I'll do something where I give you guys a heads up of like what time I'm going to post the link. Or maybe we'll just do one of these live mock drafts only with listeners and only with people from the chat. If you guys would like something like that, let me know. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
They want to take this place from us. My family is in danger. My wife is lost to me, and I don't have time.
1923, new season now streaming, exclusively on Paramount Plus.
So at the beginning of round 8, I really struggled with that decision. I almost auto-picked. I didn't, though. I took Derrick Henry, then J.J. McCarthy went, then Christian Watson, Javonte Williams, Tyler Shuck, Jaden Higgins, DeAndre Swift, Xavier Worthy, Chuba Hubbard, Jalen Warren, Cortland Sutton, Kyle Monangai. Did I reach too early on Derrick Henry?
8th round now.
Like still could be a league winner next year, right?
He technically was this year. I mean, if you had him down the stretch, it's over.
No, that's exactly right. I am back on the clock here. What are your other observations about that round?
My observations are I'm very upset that I got auto-drafted Kittle because I really wanted to take a receiver, or I still don't have my 3rd quarterback, and Malik Willis and Daniel Jones were on my radar just because Daniel Jones, when he's back, when he's healthy, he's going to start, and Malik Willis is probably going to be a quarterback for some team next year. And I think it's the Miami Dolphins, but we'll see. But he is, again, it's in a Matt LaFleur offense, so we'll see. But every time he's stepped on the field, he's been not just good in real life, but good in fantasy. So Definitely would have liked to have him as my third quarterback. That could have been a massive upside piece for my third quarterback. So I like those selections. And Michael Wilson was the other player I was waiting to see where he would go, because he's probably been the most polarizing player in fantasy this year, not including like the huge names. And new offensive coordinator, new everything pretty much in Arizona, and new quarterback probably, maybe. No, like I traded Michael Wilson. I think I talked about this last time I was on the show. I was on a team that wasn't going anywhere. I needed draft picks. I traded him like early in his breakout for an early second. And it's like, I don't know if that's good or bad at this point. Who knows?
No, I don't think anybody does. And I think that you, other than Trey McBride, you could feel that same way about pretty much everyone on the Arizona Cardinals. So I'm not sure we get a lot of clarity there. At the 9-10 turn, I took another couple of veterans to go along with Derrick Henry, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin. We at least know who their coach is going to be. Still waiting to find out who their coordinator is. They've got their quarterback in Baker Mayfield. I guess Mike Evans technically could go somewhere else. He's a free agent, right? But I'm anticipating they're going to be back in Tampa Bay. Do you have hope that, I mean, Evans and Godwin have both given us elite production, more of it from Evans, but some really high highs from Godwin in the past two. Do you have hope that those guys in 2026 can get back to that? Is it probably more likely with Godwin than Evans?
I think it might be more likely than Evans, with Evans and Godwin, just based off what we've seen. Like, he immediately was the guy again for Baker, and I don't see him going anywhere. It feels like he's in Tampa Bay for his entire career.
I'm going to read through round 9 here while Adam makes his picks, so I'm not asking him questions and causing him to fail. George Kittle, Tyrone Tracy, Alec Pierce, Matthew Golden, TJ Hawkinson, Tyler Algier, Michael Wilson, Malik Willis. I think that was a very good pick there, Snowman. Kyle Pitts, Daniel Jones, DJ Moore, and then I took Mike Evans. So we had a couple of quarterbacks in Willis and Jones there. I see Jacoby Brissett went in the next round. Tyler Algier, I think someone that people are hoping is going to become a starting running back. The running back position almost feels different to me, like there's too many running backs, whereas quarterback there aren't enough. You mentioned DJ Moore and the potential for him to get traded. Ooh, I love that Trey Benson pick you just made. Are there places DJ Moore could go where you'd be excited about him as a starting fantasy wide receiver, or you think he's just a boom bust number 3?
I think Tennessee could be interesting, depending on what's going on with their play calling situation. They could use help at receiver. Like, everybody's going to say Buffalo, but he's literally like the same player as Khalil Shakir. He's better downfield, but the Bills rarely use Brandon Cooks downfield, but that's about it. Tennessee's kind of interesting in terms of volume. It's tough elsewhere, though, because there's a lot of wide receiver rooms that are already crowded to begin with. I don't think he would make sense in Baltimore. Zay Flowers does it pretty much all the things DJ Moore does, but better at this point of their careers. So I don't know. Tennessee probably would stand out, right? And it's not the most incredible spot, obviously. Like, you don't feel as good about the quarterback or the offense, the infrastructure, stuff like that. But in just terms of sheer volume,
I may have to
maybe San Francisco. Juwan Jennings might be gone. Ayuk. That's why I took Pearsall where I did. I didn't love that pick. I'm sitting there thinking about it. Like, if he can stay healthy, Juwan Jennings might be gone. Ayuk, that situation looks terrible for the last month or last year. Kittle's got the Achilles. Like, maybe the Niners. He could do a lot of the things really well with the screen game and stuff they like to use.
I saw somebody in the chat said Washington, and I think it's another situation where Deebo Samuel could be gone.
Yeah.
Could he go in and fill that Deebo Samuel role in the offense? Absolutely.
Well, the problem with that is Brandon Ayuk's been linked to Washington for about 2 years now. So,
yeah, Ayuk would be interesting. He's been a hard guy to figure for most of his career. Let me
what
go
was it, 2 years ago? He was like pushing like top 12 status for Dynasty, and now it's just like completely plummeted.
100%, and I don't even think he hasn't been taken yet, has he?
No.
Maybe I'll add him to my stable of veterans. So Chris Godwin, Dalton Kincaid, Aronde Gadsden start off round 10. Then Jacoby Myers, Jaden Reed, Jacoby Brissett, Woody Marks, Brian Robinson, Josh Downs, Bill, Tyreek Hill, and Khalil Shakir. Tyreek Hill on Twitter, active again this week, really wants to go back to Kansas City. He's not staying in Miami, right?
Would not make a lot of sense for either side if he did.
So, like I asked about Evans and Godwin and whether they could kind of like return to what they have been. Tyreek Hill was down this year when he was healthy, but is he still like, if he, let's say he leaves and goes just about anywhere and looks like the number one wide receiver on that team, do you still believe he could be a top 15 fantasy wide receiver?
I would say like I have tempered expectations that he can be top 15. I'm not like saying no matter where he goes, he'll be a top 15 receiver, but I would give him the benefit of the doubt for like 90% of landing spots wherever he is.
Yeah, I think I'm more likely to believe that he could be a top 20 wide receiver. I think that the top 10, top 12 is probably gone. Now I'm trying to make, I like that. I like that pick that I just made. Took a couple more wide receivers, took Juwan Jennings at the end of round 11, and then Trey Harris at the start of round 12. I think we get Harris and Quentin Johnston on the outside, Ladd McConkey in the slot in 2026, right?
Yeah. I think they could have a lot of plays too where we see Trey Harris in on 2 wide sets and on 1 wide sets. Like he's, in terms of blocking, he's been awesome. So I was really contemplating taking him, but I went Trey Benson and Shakir instead. And there's Parker Washington too. I mean, that's got to be like the most interesting position, maybe team situation in Dynasty right now is Jacksonville's wide receiver, right?
So looking at that, Brian Thomas Jr. fell to round 4, which I thought was a good value. I still have a lot of hope for him. We had Travis Hunter go in round 6. We had Jacoby Myers go in round 10. We had Parker Washington go in round 12.
Yeah.
That does not actually make a lot of sense based on what we've seen for the last 6 weeks out of Jacksonville. If you were going, is that at least the order that you would rank those guys in for dynasty purposes? Would it be Thomas, Hunter, Myers, Washington for you?
Probably. But man, like Gladstone comes out and says, yeah, Travis Hunter's still going to play both sides of the ball. And given where and I'm paraphrasing here, but given where our, contract situations and expiring contracts are right now at corner, like he might have more of an emphasis at corner. That's terrifying for everybody that took Travis Hunter in the top 3 picks of the rookie drafts last year. And if they have 3 wide sets, I still think it'd be totally different if their offense was just really bad when they moved Brian Thomas to this vertical field stretching role, but their offense was unbelievable. I don't think they're going to change much with Liam Cohen there saying, okay, like Brian Thomas, we're going to use you in all these different ways. He's probably going to be more of a field stretcher than he was like last year, and that's going to mean he's going to have some 5 for 120 and a touchdown games, and it's going to have some 2 for 31. Like, is he Alec Pierce all of a sudden?
Yeah. I don't know. He's not as efficient as Alec Pierce. You've got a couple picks left to make here. We don't get to the point to where we can read every single name that gets drafted on the podcast, but as I always tell you guys, I will get an article up with a link to the full results of this draft if you want to go look at the draft board a little bit more in depth as you're getting ready to make these last 2 picks. Let's take a look at your team, see how you feel you did. At quarterback, you have 2 through 11 rounds.
Yeah, I'm giving up on my 3rd quarterback. I missed out. I'm just going to let it ride. Maybe I'll take Aaron Rodgers.
Tua is still out there. Nope, Tua was just taken. Josh Allen and Trevor Lawrence are your quarterbacks. At running back, you have Jonathan Taylor, Chase Brown, Kyle Monangai, and Trey Benson. I really like that Trey Benson pick. A lot of outs for you there at running back. At wide receiver, T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, Ricky Pearsall, of course, Khalil Shakir, and Stephon Diggs you just took. That was a panic selection,
by the way.
Good. I like those. And then the only tight end you currently have, as a torn Achilles currently, in George Kittle. So we might want to add 1 or 2 of those to the roster before we're done. Or you can just stream tight end at the beginning of the year. Maybe Kittle will be 100%. When you hear that roster, where did things go right? Where did things go wrong?
Yeah, these are always fun because they're challenging. I rarely like my team when I do these drafts, but they're really fun. So I don't love my team at all. I think I would have loved to. I wanted to try it out, but I probably would have wanted to go receiver with one of my first 3 or 4 picks instead of going receiver with none of them.
Right.
And then obviously the Kittle selection wasn't something I would have done. Early 9th, if he's back, not the end of the world, but not something I would have done if it weren't for me not paying attention. But yeah, I thought the Trey Benson pick, I was wondering how you might react to that. And it's so easy to forget and just put him to the side because we're waiting for him all in the second half to come back and get that 20-touch role. And he didn't come back, but he might just start the season with that role. Might have to just wait, a half year.
My team looks like Jalen Hurts, Caleb Williams, Sam Darnold at quarterback. I only have 2 running backs right now, Kyron Williams and Derrick Henry. Wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr., Zay Flowers, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Juwan Jennings, and Trey Harris. And my only tight end is Tyler Warren. Other than the lack of running back depth, what's your biggest concern on my team?
I guess age. This is about it, really, right?
Yeah. Well, I think like there's a pretty decent chance that I don't have a wide receiver 1 next year. Would be my concern. I might have 4 wide receiver 2s. I'm gonna take a swing on a young running back here at the end of round 13, and that will be Dylan Sampson.
I like that Jonathan Brooks pick too.
Yeah. I certainly like that one. And then we will also take an old running back in Alvin Kamara or Aaron Jones.
I mean
it's round 14, and I'm saying Alvin Kamara or Aaron Jones. I think it looked like Jones maybe had a little more left in the tank than Kamara did this year, so I'll take him. I would assume Kamara will get taken quickly. Travis Kelce was just taken with the 11th pick of round 13. I didn't do something I always do, Adam, as we finish up this draft. And again, go to cbssports.com and I'll have the draft results there up by tomorrow morning. But just remind everybody, I know everybody knows you, but remind everybody where they can find your work and what you've got coming up.
Yeah, ftnfantasy.com, still doing a lot of charting, which I've been enjoying, watching film. Luckily, I didn't have to go back and watch the Bills game, but I talk about this every time I come on. It really opens your mind and your eyes to different things with football and fantasy as well when you're charting these games and watching all of the plays instead of just the highlights and stuff. So doing a lot of that with basketball as well, and I'm excited to break down starting this off. I mean, obviously, I'm already in off-season mode. I can care less what happens the rest of the season. But my favorite time of the year to write and do content is easily the off season. I love watching football every week. I love starting and setting lineups and stuff like that. By far, my favorite time of the year to write articles and get lost in articles and do podcasts and break stuff down is the coaching changes, planting flags for players you like based on what happened last year. It's my favorite thing to do. So I'd be lying if I said I wasn't, especially with the Bills season over. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't excited for the off season.
Awesome stuff. Thank you always for coming on here. Thank you to everybody who was active in the chat and for all the drafters who got through this 14-round draft in just about 45 minutes. Awesome job of you guys. Thank you to Emma for making everything work. We will talk to you guys on Friday with the Couch Scouts. It's rookie season.